Well, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's lovely to see you all along. The weather so far is holding up, so I can only thank you. I think this is maybe the best turnout we've had on the 10th year, so it just means so much to me, and I know so much to families who are here as well, that you all care enough to come along and pay our respects to our 66 fellow supporters who sadly didn't make it home on the 2nd of January 1971. Last year the club would have had what would have been a massive event at Glasgow Cathedral. Unfortunately COVID put paid to that, and strictly speaking, if there's more than 500 of you here, we're breaching the rules just now. But you can go and do your shopping in Asda, you're alright doing that, however. Anyway, once again I'd like to thank you all for coming along. A few updates from last year. Sadly, a family who I've grown very close to, Margaret Ferguson was the only female to die at the disaster. She came from my hometown of Falkirk, part of Falkirk called Madison. And sadly, Margaret was only 18 when she died. And I got to know her family, her sister Mary and her niece Annette very, very well over the last few years. And very sadly, Mary, Margaret's sister, passed away earlier this year. So we're also remembering a few family members this year as well, ladies and gentlemen. It's getting to that stage where you know, life goes on. I think the oldest to die at the disaster was Matthew Reid. He was 49, so as you can imagine, he would have turned 100 this year. You know, so we've got to respect that families are getting older as well, and you know, we've got a lot of children who are now the same age as me, roughly. So we'd like to remember Mary Gibb this year as well. So we'll get on with the tribute. I did watch an Ibrox disaster programme the other day there, who said that the referee's whistle blew at 4:41 p.m. So we're right at that moment now where people were coming down these stairs, which came down right above us, and hence the reason we have the memorial here, because this is exactly where the disaster unfolded, probably maybe 70 or 80 feet above our very heads. So it's a very poignant place to be. So I'll go through you've got your order of services here if you were quick enough. I did see a few vultures descending on Laura earlier. I'll now play my piping tribute, and then we'll go through the order of service. But we'll then make our way round to the statue, where we will have a minute's silence and a few words from a couple of other people. We'll say cheerio at that point then. So thank you once again for coming along. It means so much to the families, and respects to you all. Thank you. Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for that warm applause. I'm out of breath now. I'll now hand you over to my two sons, Ian Jr. and Derek, who have followed me on my pilgrimage for the last 20 or so years. They were just wee boys when I started going to graveyards and visiting and paying my respects. And then obviously 10 years ago we came here. There was just me, my two sons, and George Baxter from Coatbridge, who gets a mention every year, and he's here this year. I did see him somewhere a wee while ago. So it's grown from that. Alan McEwen, obviously from the Toby True Blues, got involved in promoting it, and we're here today. Social media does have its good sides. So I'll hand you over to Ian and Derek, and they're going to remember each individual in person. Thank you.
George Wilson, aged 15.
George Irwin, aged 22.
Alexander McIntyre, aged 29.
Robert Grant, aged 21.
George Adams, aged 43.
Hugh Addie, aged 33.
Charles Dugan, aged 31.
John Jeffrey, aged 16.
Thomas Grant, aged 16.
Russell Morgan, aged 14.
George Smith, aged 40.
John Gardiner, aged 32.
David Anderson, aged 45.
David McPherson, aged 30.
David McGee, aged 14.
John Buchanan, aged 32.
Francis Dover, aged 16.
Thomas Melville, aged 17.
Robert Mulholland, aged 16.
Walter Shields, aged 15.
Donald Sutherland, aged 14.
David Duff, aged 23.
John Crawford, aged 23.
Robert Ray, aged 25.
Robert Carrigan, aged 13.
John Semple, aged 18.
Thomas Stirling, aged 16.
James Ray, aged 19.
Duncan McBearty, aged 17.
Thomas McRobbie, aged 17.
George Finlay, aged 21.
John Neill, aged 29.
Charles Livingston, aged 30.
Peter Farries, aged 26.
Andrew Lindsay, aged 18.
Brian Hutchison, aged 16.
Robert Maxwell, aged 15.
James Traynor, aged 20.
Peter Wright, aged 31.
Thomas Dickson, aged 32.
Charles Stirling, aged 20.
Ian Frew, aged 21.
Richard Bark, aged 15.
James Gray, aged 37.
William Summerhill, aged 17.
William Shaw, aged 38.
Ian Hunter, aged 14.
Robert McAdam, aged 36.
Alexander Orr, aged 16.
James Mair, aged 19.
Adam Henderson, aged 43.
Matthew Reid, aged 49.
Richard McLeavy, aged 28.
Margaret Ferguson, aged 18.
Peter Easton, aged 13.
John McLeavy, aged 23.
Brian Todd, aged 14.
Russell Malcolm, aged 16.
Ronald Payton, aged 14.
Douglas Morrison, aged 14.
James Sibbald, aged 28.
William Mason Phillip, aged 15.
Walter Rayburn, aged 36.
Robert Cairns, aged 17.
Nigel Pickup, aged 8.
John McGovern, aged 24.
And of course, not forgetting George Nelson and Thomas Thompson, who died on Stairway 13 in September 1961.
and also remembering the 25 people who lost their lives here at the stadium during a Scotland versus England match in 1902.
Thank you, Ian and Derek. I think as you hear the names who are real people, but also their ages, and more than half of the people who perished were 18 or under, and it just it makes you wonder. Anyway. Next up has become a feature of the service over the last few years, is a young chap who got in touch with me back in 2015 or 2016, 15 I think, and he had written a song with his own words to Snow Patrol's Chasing Cars, specifically for this event really. He didn't make it for this event, but it's for the happenings of 2nd of January 71. And the words are very poignant, he sings it brilliantly, so I'd like you to welcome Paul Meikleham, who's going to sing Forever 66.
Hoping to If I just lay here, would you lie with me in Ibrox Stadium?
Absolutely fantastic once again, Paul. Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we come along to remember the 66 people who never made it home, and I was contacted by a chap who had been at the game and got injured and survived, and it made it quite relevant that, well, I think we should hear from them. Now, it's not on the order of service, it was on last year's order of service, because Alan Wood came along last year. There was a few less of you then, shall we say, but we broke the law, actually, Alan. I would say I'm a rebel, but that would be completely wrong, wouldn't it? Anyway, I like to live close to the edge, shall we say. So I'd like to welcome Alan Wood along again. He has got his memories of that day to share with you. So put your hands together for Alan Wood.
January 1971, Dave Edmonds, a here in Ogden, was number one in the charts at the time. Elton John had just appeared in the music scene with his big oversized glasses, bell-bottom trousers, platform shoes with a fashion trend, and a Morris Marina and a Hillman Avenger with the cars of choice for those that could afford them. I had my whole life in front of me, but January 2nd, 1971 is a day that will live with me for the rest of my life. I was a young lad, just turned 16. And like so many other young lads, I was looking forward to going to Ibrox to see my heroes, Colin Steen, John Gregg and Wally Johnson playing against Celtic in the New Real Firm Derby. It was a rather dull, foggy morning as my father and I set off from home to reach the head for the match. Ibrox was a place so familiar to me, having been brought up in Broomland Road opposite the old Ibrox House pub, a popular meeting place for Rangers fans of that era. The pub has since been demolished and replaced with what is now the petrol station. I fondly remember going to the stadium every second Saturday and being lifted over the turnstiles. As I grew older, my family had moved to Johnson, and I would catch the bus to Ibrox with my friends from Johnson High School, wearing their painted red, blue and white builders' hats, which was customary headwear at that time, worn for protection prior to the introduction of the Safety in Football Grounds Act 1973, which put an end to alcohol in football grounds in Scotland, and also an end to the hail of bottles and cans that all too regularly landed in the fans stand at the front of the terraces. The New Year derby of 1971 was special to me, as it was my first New Year Old Firm game. There was great anticipation of a Rangers victory, and I excitedly went to the game. A huge 85,000 crowd filled the stadium, and the match kicked off. There was a strange silence around the ground, as though everyone was hungover from the previous night as they brought in the new year. There was none of the usual chanting from either end, very quiet by Old Firm standards. And the game itself was pretty drab too. It was like the players were still suffering from their New Year's celebrations. During the match, I stood at the front of the Copeland Road terrace and was chatting away to a group of younger lads from Markidge and Fife. We spoke about the football teams we ourselves played for. Neill told me they played for Markidge United under 15s. We spoke of all things Rangers, and despite the quiet atmosphere, I think we all enjoyed each other's company in the friendly banter, also sharing the legendary macaroon bars and spearmint chewing gum. It was just fun being there that day, totally unaware of the events which would later unfold. 88 minutes passed without incident, the biggest excitement trying to watch the game as the fog swirled and the floodlights like something out of a movie. At times we were unable to see the far end of the pitch with the fog, and there was talk among supporters that the game may have to be abandoned as it was becoming increasingly difficult to see what was happening in the park. As the game looked like fizzling out to a boring 0-each draw, out of nothing Jimmy Johnson headed the ball into the net as a shot came back off the crossbar, and the crowd at last came to life. On the Celtic end anyway, as droves of Rangers fans headed to the exits. The congestion as always at the end of matches was the usual jostling and shoving as fans raced to get to the subway or their cars in Copeland Road and surrounding streets. Then as I neared the top of the terrace, Colin Steen scored the late equaliser with the last kick of the ball. The Rangers fans erupted and cheered delight, Little were they to know what was to follow only a minute or two later. What was the disaster has been debated for over 50 years now. Some eyewitnesses say it was caused by fans trying to get back into the stadium after Rangers' equaliser and were pushed over by the crowd leaving the ground. Others said a fan was seen carrying a young lad on his shoulders and stumbled, leading to thousands of fans falling over the two of them. My personal experience was of being lifted clean off my feet and a mass of fans rushing to the stairs in Stairway 13, unable to change direction, unable to do anything about where I was being taken, and the waves and waves of fans jostling to get out the ground. I was literally carried onto the stairway, my feet completely in mid-air, with no way of stopping myself. It was very difficult to draw a breath in the crushing had fallen, and there was such an eerie silence, no shouting as you would expect in such a situation, just total silence. Fans were literally having the life crushed out of them and were unable to scream or shout. I looked to my left and I saw my father's face, full of fear and turning purple, when suddenly to my right there was a large creaking sound, a loud creaking sound, easily heard in the silence as the barriers gave way. Hundreds of fans toppled off the stairs onto the grass verge, their positions on the stairs being taken by other fans, crashing like dominoes through the barriers to the right and the second row of stairs. I was thrown onto a pile of fans on the grass verge to the right of Stairway 13, my father landing on top of me. A mass of bodies all trying to get back on their feet. You could not help but stand on other fans as you tried to escape the pile of fans rolling in the grass into the embankment. It was so difficult to know how deep the pile of bodies underneath us was. My dad managed to get upright and pull me out by the legs from a mass of people all trying to get back on their feet and away from the crushing. Even at that moment we did not think anything too serious had happened and fully expected everyone to be okay with maybe just a bruise or two to show for the experience. My dad and I clambered up the grass embankment back onto the top of the terracing, unable to go down the way due to the amount of fans still tangled together in the grass verge from almost the top of the stairway right down to the bottom. We made our way up the embankment onto Stairway 12, where we exited the stadium oblivious to the carnage we'd left behind. We continued on to Peter's Cafe at the bottom of Berrenhouse Road, where we'd arranged to meet my mother before heading to my uncle's house in Chapel for some New Year's celebrations. These were the days before mobile phones. So we were still unaware that there had been a major incident and assumed the sirens we heard were police going to deal with crowd trouble. We were totally oblivious to the real reason there were so many sirens sounding. As we arrived at my uncle's house, he met us at the door with a huge hug and a look of utter relief on his face. He'd seen the news and at that point heard reports of 16 fans killed in the Ibrox incident. He knew we were at the game and knew we always lived by Stairway 13. My mum and dad and I sat stunned as events of that tragic day unfolded in regular news flashes. 16 dead in major Ibrox incident, 22 killed in Ibrox disaster, then 30 die in Ibrox disaster, then 40, then 50. News updates went right up to 10 o'clock that night when the death toll had reached 66, with 152 other reported serious injuries. There would have been hundreds of others injured who never reported what had happened to them. I sat in total bewilderment as I realised how close I had been to my life being snuffed out before it even began. I was in tears all night and physically sick with the shock. Any thoughts of New Year's celebration were gone. Next day, as some of the victims' names were announced and I heard the 5 young lads from Markinch that had been killed, I broke down again as I realised who they were and remembered the smile and cheerful faces as we spoke during the game. It was so difficult to think that these young lads had travelled so far to come to the game, so happy and cheerful, never to return home. Totally heartbreaking, a story only too familiar to the families of 61 other victims who look forward to a new year full of hopes and dreams that were tragically never to come to fruition. Remember, of course, that 33 of the victims were just young lads like myself, all under 20 years old. Margaret Ferguson, aged just 18, the only female victim. It was days later the bruising in both my father and my body started to show. I was black and blue from my waist to my feet. It was one of the lucky ones. Bruises healing through time they did. But memories do not fade, and I have lived with those memories ever since. My dad recently celebrated his 90th birthday and continues to support Rangers to this day. A true blue and a survivor like myself. But football changed forever that day, and the legacy is our magnificent stadium, a lasting memorial to those who happily went to a football game, never to be seen alive by their friends and families again. I am so grateful for the life I've I was spared and allowed to enjoy. Sadly for many families, they never got to see their sons grow up, to see them get married, their children of their own. A lost generation. That is a real tragedy of the Ibrox disaster. We now enjoy a much safer, more comfortable, all-seated environment to watch our team in, thanks to the vision of the late Lay Wreaths. We pushed for a full stadium redevelopment, with fan safety the #1 priority. Lay Wreaths was another Rangers legend. He was not only responsible for the rebuilding of our stadium, who along with Jock Wallace led our team to European glory in Barcelona the following year after the disaster. It was said a trophy won for all those fans who lost their lives. A new era was born out of the disaster. Fan safety became a priority when before little was thought was given to this. Despite the warnings from the Ibrox disaster of 1902, when 5 fans lost their lives in terracing collapsed during the Scotland-England home international, or a little more recently in 1961 when 2 fans died in the crossing stairway 13. Warnings which were never heeded at the time, but suddenly became so important. We should never be so complacent and always remember what can happen if in our haste to go home after the match we shove and jostle. It's just not worth it. And my life and thousands of others has been haunted by those memories ever since. We must make sure it never happens again. We must always remember those 66 members of our Rangers family, as well as others who have lost their lives while visiting Ibrox Stadium. Our absent friends, always in our hearts.
Thank you very much, Alan, and you can tell from how Alan was throughout that, the emotion's still there, it's still raw, and I really appreciate you coming along and sharing your experience with us. I was up in Markins yesterday, as has been my tradition for the last 20 odd years. The 40th anniversary Rangers supporters worldwide, which I certainly wasn't involved in at that time, got together and renewed the memorial bench. Families were involved in that, and they also renovated the memorial at Park View, which is where most of the boys lived. And they planted 5 trees, 1 in memory of each. And you know, the scene yesterday was very poignant because there's Ranger scarves tied round each tree, scarves and tributes lying at the memorial cairn at the end of the road as well. And then when you go up to the cemetery, and it really does bring it home just how tragic that was. And of course Alan had personal experience there with these boys in the ground that day. Sadly, it looks like there's been activity recently with Peter Easton's grave, so I'm not sure exactly what's happened there. His mother was elderly, and I wouldn't like to speculate on that, but I just hope that her health remains. If not, then we also have to remember her as well. It's such a poignant thing to go through the 50 years without your son, and I can only imagine what it must have been like if I'd lost my 2 sons, who are here today, of course. Anyway, we're now going to make our way around to the memorial statue out in Emerson Drive, where if anybody has floral tributes and wreaths, you can lay them. We'll have a minute's silence, and Alan McEwen from the Toby True Blues will have a few words to say as well. So if you can wait just a few seconds, because I'll lead you around with the pipes, if you don't all tear round just now. Although some folk must think I'm Nicola Sturgeon because they're not listening to me. Did I say that out loud? Anyway, I'll lead you around to the pipes, and we'll see you around there in 5 minutes or so. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
good afternoon. If as many of you as can possibly be over here, please.
Don't all hide round the corners, plenty of room. Fill up the pavement so that everybody can see this part of the ceremony and take part. Thank you. Again, ladies and gentlemen, there's plenty of room round here. If you want to come round from the back of the Copeland Road there, round onto the Edmondson Drive, there is plenty of room round here. Those that are at the front can move forward and make plenty of room for others. Thank you. Social distance is out the window anyway.
Excuse me, mate, can I get in front of you?
The only one thing I would say is make your way back from where the statue is, because we will need room there for Lay Wreaths. Okay? So don't crowd in too much at the statue. And if you're still round the corner there, come round. Are we looking all right? Are we all in? Hands up if you're not here. Right. I'd like you to put your hands together for Alan McCune. He's a retiring sort. Doesn't like a lot of attention. Alan runs the Toby True Blues Ranger Supporters Club, has done since its inception, some 28 years ago now. We lost a year with COVID, you see. But he's been a great support in this whole thing, a great support to me, not just with tickets. But I'd like to thank him for that now as well. I'm going to hand you over to him so he can say a few words.
Thanks very much, Ian. I think first of all, I haven't got a long speech, thankfully. Ian, your weather predictions are rubbish, by the way. Ever since you said that, the wind and the rain has come. I think it would be remiss of somebody not to acknowledge the sheer determination, commitment and endeavour of Ian to make sure that the Rangers support continue to remember the 66, and I think we should recognise that just now. Ian, thanks very much for everything. The really good news is I can't see my speech because it's that dark here, so I'll just go in a wee bit of memory here and say that I think that one of the other things that I wanted to mention today was that it would be really nice in this 150th year anniversary of the club that the club finally put together a dedicated memorial for the 66. It's been a long time coming and it should happen, and I hope in this year we'll do something about it. We'll shortly commence laying some tributes. Please come forward and lay your tributes at the front there if we can get through there. And I think now we'll just commence them in silence. Before we do that, I'll try and get Ian, if you get the light there, sorry. There we go. For he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture, the flock under his care. and will now commence the minute silence.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you'd like to now continue forward to the statue to lay any floral tributes that you may have, and if I could ask Alan from the Toby Drew Blues to lead off, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, just before you go, feel free to go if you want. Just a few thanks that I need to do. First of all to Graham Crawley here, who's arranged the generators for either side of the memorial service. We were struggling to get power from Rangers Football Club, but Graham stepped in and managed to organise generators for us. So thank you very much, Graham, it's much appreciated. And for his musical accompaniment and power around here. This was the bit that was always missing, always lacking in sound, so thank you very much. Alan McHugh again I've already thanked, but again his support is unstinting. Laura for folding up all the leaflets last night. Ross Hardy, who's here somewhere, for printing the leaflets for me. Thank you very much for that. For my two sons, Derek for accompanying me yesterday on the grave visits. For the support I received last year after the thing, I did a Just Giving fundraising thing, and we raised over £5,000 to go towards the Rangers Grave Restoration Project. And the support I had from across the country was phenomenal, with some huge donations from supporters clubs and as well as the Hillsborough Ibrox Memorial Group. So that all went towards restoring graves of the founding fathers of the club, as well as people who perished in 71, 61 and back in time, people who have been attached to the club. Again, as I've said already, I'd like to pay my special respects to Mary Gibb, who passed away last year, the sister of Margaret Ferguson, and to all the people who have come along today. It's quite humbling to see so many people here. The weather's never great at this time of year, it's bitterly cold, so thanks again for coming along. A safe journey home, ladies and gentlemen, and here's the 56. Thank you.